Hey everybody, Drew again from Drew's Reviews, looking at UFC 224, coming right at you on May the 12th. So let's just jump right in, shall we? Starting things off with Alberto Mina versus Ramazan Emeev. Alberto Mina, 13-0, fighting out of Brazil. He's around 6 foot tall, weighing in at 170 pounds, versus the 16-3 Emeev, fighting out of Russia. He's right around 5'10". Last fight was at 185 pounds. He's got a win over Sam Alvey. It's really the only notable name he's got. Otherwise, Mina has wins over Mike Pyle and Yoshihiro Akiyama in his last two fights. So on this one, we're probably going to give it to Alberto Mina, fighting better quality of folks and having wins over him. Next, we've got Thales Leites versus Jack Hermanson. Thales Leites is 27-8. He's 6'1", and 185, fighting out of Brazil, versus Jack Hermanson, who is 16-4, also 6'1", also 185, fighting out of Sweden. Leites is 2 of his last 4 have been wins. His most recent win is a win over Chris Camozzi and Sam Alvey. His last loss was decision to Brad Tavares, good fighter. Jack Hermanson, he's won 2 of his last 4. Coming off a knockout by Thiago Santos. So definitely going to have to give it to Thales Leites, being that he's got better wins more recently, and they're also fighting in Brazil. So giving the edge to the Brazilian. After that, we've got Warley Alves versus Sultan Aliyev. Warley Alves, 12-2. He's 5'11". He's 170, fighting out of Brazil. Aliyev is 14-2. He's also 5'11", 170, fighting out of Russia. Alves has won 2 of his last 4, and he's got previous wins over Colby Covington and Salim Touhari. Aliyev has, right now, only 1 win in the 2 fights that he has in the UFC, but his 1 win was over Bojan Velikovic. Honestly, gonna have to go with Sultan on this one. He's definitely gonna win. But, yeah. Maybe definitely gonna win. Maybe definitely gonna win. Time for a break. Excuse me, folks. For our next one, we've got Eliezer Zaleski dos Santos versus Sean Strickland. So, dos Santos is 18-5. He's 5'11". His last fight was at 155. Fights out of Brazil. Sean Strickland is 19-1-1. He's 6'1", 170, fighting out of the U.S. Now, dos Santos has won his last 4 fights, and 3 of those have actually been Fight of the Night bonuses. Strickland has won 4 of his last 5. His most recent loss was a decision loss against the very, very able Kamaru Usman. I hate to root against my fellow American, but I'm giving the edge to dos Santos. He's just too much of a competitor right now. Being in Brazil, definitely going to have to favorite him on that. Next up, we've got Davi Ramos versus Nick Hein. Not much to say about Davi. He's 7-2 overall record. He's 5'8", 170 was his last fight. He is fighting out of Brazil, and he's 1 of 2 in the UFC. So 1 win of his 2 fights in the UFC. Nick Hein, however, is 14-2. He's 5'6", last fighting at 155. He fights out of Germany. He's won 4 of his last 5. He recently has lost a decision to the very talented and very rising James Vick, but he has beaten quality fighters in Tae Hyung Bang and Drew Dober. Definitely going to give the win to Nick Hein, the German. He's going to win this one. Next up, we've got a heavyweight bout. Alexei Oleinik versus Junior Albini. Alexei Oleinik, the veteran, 52-11, 1 no contest. He is 6'2", weighing in at around 240, versus Junior Albini, 14-3. He is 6'3", and he comes in at 264, fighting out of Brazil. So this one is a tough one. This is the only fight on the card where I really don't have a favorite, because Alexei is coming off of that weird loss to Curtis Blades. That was an odd one. He's won 2 of his last 3, though, and he is a crafty old man. He'll stand and bang, but he is a wizard on the ground. Remember that, what was it? It was Ezekiel choke. That was wild. Definitely don't forget that one. No sleeping on Junior Albini though. 14-3. He's a big dude. Sounds like he's got a cut to make 265. So he's got one win of his last two, and his loss was a decision loss to Andrei Arlovski, former UFC heavyweight champion. So no shame in that, especially being a decision loss. But his first fight in the UFC was a round 1 KO. I believe it was right around the 230 mark of Tim Johnson. So I just don't know how to call it. I kind of lean toward Junior Albini on this one, but it's a tough one to call. After that, we've got Cesar Ferreira versus Carl Robertson. Cesar Ferreira, 13-6, 6 foot, 185 out of Brazil. Carl Robertson, he's 6-0. He's 6'1", 185 fighting out of the US. So Ferreira has won 4 of his last 5. His last win was a decision win over Nate Marquardt, very good fighter. His last loss was to Elias Theodorou by decision. He's a very active fighter. So since April of 2016, he has fought, this will be his 6th fight. So very active fighter in the organization. Carl Robertson, though, he's 2-0 in the UFC, 6-0 overall. Big, strong dude, good submission grappler. I'm giving the edge to the American on this one. Carl Robertson's going to win. After that, we've got a fight where I'm sad to see it. I'm sad to see it. I can't believe it's going to happen. It's Vitor Belfort versus Lyoto Machida. So these two dinosaurs are going to go at it. Vitor Belfort, 26-13. He's 6 foot tall. He's fighting at 185 right now. He's out of Brazil, just like Lyoto Machida. Lyoto Machida, 23-8, 6'1", 185, also fighting out of Brazil. Vitor Belfort, he's got 2 losses and 1 no contest in his last 4 fights. Recent victory over Nate Marquardt by decision, but he has been knocked out by Jacare Souza and Gegard Mousasi in his last bouts. He is not TRT Tour anymore. He definitely has lost a step. This is a hard one to call for him. I feel like, yeah, his swan song for sure. Lyoto Machida, finally back in the UFC. He's already had a fight back with a decision win over Eric Anders, but he's only won 1 of his last 4. Those 3 losses were brutal knockouts by Yoel Romero, Luke Rockhold, and Derek Brunson. So, I mean, I give the edge to Lyoto Machida, but it's not going to be pretty. Either man wins. After that, we've got John Lineker versus Brian Keller. John Lineker, what to say about John Lineker? 30-8. He's 5'3". It's at 185. It's bantamweight. He's fighting out of Brazil. Brian Keller, 19-8. He's 5'6", also bantamweight, 135, fighting in the U.S. John Lineker has wins over Mike McDonald, knocked out Mike McDonald, the decision win over John Dodson. His most recent win was the decision win over Marlon Vera. His most recent loss was a loss to TJ Dillashaw, the current bantamweight champion, and in my opinion, one of the greatest fighters of all time, especially at that weight class. Brian Keller, he's won 3 of his last 4 with decision wins over Henan Barao and a submission loss to, you guessed it, Marlon Vera, same man that John Lineker just beat by decision. So, yeah, it's going to be hard to beat John Lineker. You've got to put him out, and he doesn't get put out. Hands of Stone is a really good nickname for him, but giving this one to John Lineker. After that, you've got a couple females up on the card. Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Cooper. This is where the MMA math doesn't quite add up because you've got Mackenzie Dern, who's 6-0. Sounds good, right? Versus Amanda Cooper, who's 4-3. Doesn't sound as good. They're both around the same size, 5'4", 5'3". They're both at 115, both fighting in the U.S. But Mackenzie Dern has only fought once before in the UFC, and that was a decision win over Ashley Yoder. Now, Amanda Cooper, however, has quite a bit of experience in the UFC. So she's won 2 of her last 4, but she has her most recent win being a knockout win over Angela Magana. But her most recent loss was a submission loss to Cynthia Calvillo, who's quite an experienced fighter in herself. So I'm honestly giving this one to Cooper. She's the more experienced fighter, and she's going to carry the day based on that experience and her ability to fight at a higher level. After that, we've got Jacare Souza versus Kelvin Gastelum. Jacare, 25-5, 6'1", 185 now, fighting out of Brazil. Kevin Gastelum, 15-9. He's what is he? He's 5'9". He's also fighting out of the U.S. at 185, sadly. So Jacare, he's won 3 of his last 4. His most recent loss was to Robert Whittaker, which was a TKO. But his most recent win was that scary knockout over Derek Brunson, where he hit him with the high kick, had him stumbling, walked him down. Terrifying. That was such an incredible finish. Then he's fighting Kelvin Gastelum. Kelvin Gastelum, his most recent win was that win over Michael Bisping. But yes, you say Michael Bisping is very good, former champion. He should not have been in the ring again that soon after being knocked out by GSP. His most recent loss was a submission loss to Chris Weidman, who has great grappling chops, but nobody thinks of him as a submission artist. Usually he just has a really strong top wrestling game. But he does have a no contest against Vitor Belfort and wins over Tim Kennedy and Johnny Hendricks. So both of those guys are good fighters, not necessarily made for that weight class. Tim Kennedy, he cut far too much weight. He had far too much muscle mass on his body to be fighting at 185. He was just too big, and he gassed incredibly early against Kelvin Gastelum. Same could almost be said for Johnny Hendricks, except Johnny Hendricks has too much fat on his body to be fighting at 185. He needs to go back down to 170, just like Kelvin. Kelvin is kind of small to be at 185, whereas Jacare Souza, he's the full, real deal at 185. I've got this one going for Jacare. He puts him out on the feet. It's possible. Kelvin has sharper, crisper hands, but if this does go to the ground, Jacare, he's gonna roll him. It's gonna be bad. But yeah, give him the edge to Jacare. Oh God, I forgot about that one. It's fucking, oh my gosh. Yeah, this one, I don't like this next fight. The main event is Amanda Nunes versus Raquel Pennington. Raquel Pennington, the UFC is desperate at this point in time for 135 women's challengers. Amanda Nunes, what can you say about her that hasn't been said before? She's 15-4, she's 5'8", 135 fighting out of Brazil versus Raquel Pennington, 9-6, she's 5'7", 135 fighting in the United States. Amanda Nunes, 6-fight winning streak, includes Ronda Rousey, Valentina Shevchenko twice. That Rousey fight was sad to watch. Like that was brutal. Valentina Shevchenko, she's a hard, tough competitor. One of the best women in MMA right now. 100%, and has beaten her twice in recent memory. Then you've got Miesha Tate. That was a rough transition of the crown. That was a fight to see. Then Sarah McMahon, who is still relevant, still very relevant in this weight class and women's MMA in general. And she's beaten all of them. Her most recent loss was to Kat Zingano in 2014, TKO loss. 2014, you're like, what else happened in 2014? That was the same card that Conor McGregor fought Dustin Poirier. So way back in the day, back when Conor McGregor was active and actually in the UFC and really selling the fights for fans and doing us justice. That was that far back in the day that she lost. It's been a while. She's been on top. She's the queen lion. Not to nut hug on her too bad, but looking at Raquel Pennington, like you shouldn't do MMA math, but there's levels to this thing, as Joe Rogan always says. Her most recent win was a decision over Miesha Tate in 2016. That was her most recent win. That was her most recent fight. Most recent loss, Holly Holm. But she's got wins over Elizabeth Phillips, who's that? Jessica Andrade and Bethe Correia. Both of them, they've been contenders, but they're not at the level that Amanda Nunes is at. Amanda Nunes, she can take care of you on the ground, but most likely, you're not going to be able to weather the storm. Amanda Nunes is going to win this one. So that's UFC 224. I hope y'all enjoy the video. If you did, like it. If you really enjoyed it, smash that subscribe for me. But otherwise, gotta say thanks again. I really appreciate everyone tuning in. And as always, this is Drew. Y'all stay frosty now.